Alvin, the Supermarket Stalker by u/TrueFakeAdult. This whole thing started in 2005. I was 14, and it ended in 2011 when I was 20. In the summer and fall of 2005, my grandparents had moved into a tiny mobile home park kind of in between two small towns. And at the end of the road that they lived on, a shopping center was still being built, so at that time, there was only a Target store. Please keep this in mind because it is truly where the story begins. Being as I stayed at my grandparents' home quite often, maybe 3 to 5 days a week, and it was the only store out there, we were there quite frequently. No specific employees ever stood out to us, nor do I remember ever seeing Alvin there. Well, let's just call him that. Within a few months, a Save Mart was added to the shopping center, now making 2 stores out there. If you're not in California, it's just a basic grocery store. And naturally, since Save Mart has cheaper groceries than Target, we began to shop there instead. This is where Alvin made himself known, whether he intended to or not. I can't tell you how many times we would go down random aisles, and this dude would just show up. At first, he acted like he was just restocking shelves or cleaning, but eventually, he would just stand there and stare at me. And he would do this in every aisle we went to. Then, as we would leave, he would refuse to let anyone else bag our groceries for us and would still bag the groceries and follow us to our car, even if we refused the help. This went on for months, until just as quickly as he made himself known, he also quickly disappeared. Or at least we thought. As time went on, things were quiet, and I eventually started seeing Alvin again around Save Mart, but he no longer did the weird shit like before. Around 2009 to 2010, I got into more of the internet and social media scene, and I became quite into a site called My Yearbook, and was actually quite popular on there and would get multiple friend requests a day. So when I got a request from a guy named Alvin, given that I never knew this guy's name, no alarm bells went off. I frequently would exchange phone numbers and sometimes meet people from my yearbook, and eventually began texting with Alvin. For over a year we texted and nothing more, but we were able to have a good flow of conversation and talked about life. I found out that he worked at Save Mart, and I tried to figure out which one, so that maybe one day when I was out running around, I could stop off and say hi or something. But he kept refusing, so I let it go. Eventually, New Year's Eve of 2010 rolled around, and I was having a party with my best friend, her brothers, and a few of our other friends, and invited Alvin. He tried to say he worked late and didn't know if he could make it, but I was determined to get him over to the party. I talked him into showing up, and when he did, I instantly regretted it. My best friend and her brothers, let's call them Leah, Randy, and RJ, knew all about this guy and how weird he had been. And when he showed up and I realized who he was, I did my best just to enjoy the party without interacting with him much. My friend's brother, who I'd had kind of a thing with, stayed right with me, but so did Alvin. And the whole night, no matter how many times my friends tried to interact with him and get him away from me, he wouldn't budge. He wouldn't speak to them or even acknowledge them. He literally just stood there and stared at me the whole time, and besides saying hello when he came in, he said not one other word to even me. It came down to midnight. We did the countdown, where Randy and I made a big show about kissing and all that, thinking that it would throw him off. it didn't. He stared even when that happened. And finally, Leia and RJ came up with a plan to pretend that all of us were going to bed now, and then told him that he needed to leave. Luckily, he did. And then again, just like before, he seemed to disappear. Around November, I had gotten my first job, which afforded me to buy a car. Grandma and I were still shopping at Save Mart, but Alvin wasn't bothering us really, except for, again, occasionally seeing him around the store, where he would speak to my grandma, but not me. This particular day, though, he hadn't followed us at all, and I thought us leaving would go over without any appearance from him. I was wrong. He came over, began bagging our stuff even though we'd said no, and then began not only following us to the car again, talking to only my grandma about how I needed to apply at Target because when they first opened, he worked there, and if I put him on my application as reference, I would get the job. And of course, I had seen through his manipulation tactic, but my grandma, unfortunately not so much. She kept going on and on about how I should do it, so I explained to her everything that had happened, and not only did it shut her up, she took my side. Long story short, I applied without his reference and got the job, but had to turn it down for a better opportunity. He began following me around the store again, and I a few times would say hi just to let him know that I knew he was there. And eventually, he did ask me to hang out under the guise of it being a group hangout with him and some of his co-workers. It was all a lie. When I showed up, it was just him, and I sat at a table in the donut shop for around 20 minutes before I made an excuse and left. That was my biggest mistake, but I was a bored 20-year-old, and my boyfriend at that time encouraged me to go because he wanted me to make more friends. He asked to hang out again about a month later, and since he'd stopped following me around the store and acted semi-normal the last time, I agreed. So, we met at Starbucks. Around 9:30 they closed, and I walked to my car thinking, cool, that's that, I can go home now. But nope, he invited me to his house. I said no, but he'd also said that his mom had homemade cookies and stuff there and wanted to meet me. So I thought, fine, I'll go get a cookie and leave. Bro, he told his parents and siblings that I was his girlfriend. The whole time I kept correcting them and telling them that I'd already had a boyfriend and Alvin was not him. They just kept ignoring it. So I panicked and I hid in the bathroom on my phone with my then boyfriend trying to figure out how to get me out of there. My boyfriend said to say that there was an emergency and leave then come straight to his house. I did just that, and all night Alvin wouldn't stop texting me and tagging me in random Facebook posts about love and relationships. I blocked him on all the socials that I had back then and turned my phone off and went to bed, thinking never again. He began not only following me around the store, but if I was out anywhere, he would show up there. Like one day, I was getting snacks and an energy drink at a convenience store, and in he came. His excuse? I saw your car outside and I wanted to say hi to you. And that wasn't the first or only time that he did that. Finally, my boyfriend and my boyfriend's dad threatened him to make him leave me alone, to which he sent me a long text about how me not being with him was a mistake because he was apparently a children's pastor, rich, and owned his own house. Oh, he also later on in the text diatribe he sent admitted to not only having unprotected sex, which I'm not against, I mean, you do you, but he was having it with the underage girls in his youth group. What the fuck? No, just absolutely no. He again disappeared at Save Mart, at least from me. But when my grandma or grandpa would go in without me, he would relentlessly hound them about how he had a large bank account and how his parents bought a house for him and that they needed to make me break up with my boyfriend and be with him. When my grandpa exploded on him one day about leaving me alone, he then started in about, well, she has a sister, I could date her. Which my sister was a minor at that time. At this point is where both my grandparents filed complaints against him to his supervisors and where they learned they weren't the first. Multiple female employees had either complained about sexual harassment or left the job completely because of Alvin. Luckily, this led to him getting fired, and I haven't seen him since. Last I heard through the grapevine, he knocked up one of those teenage girls in his youth group and married her. So, Alvin, I hope we never meet again. What Are the Odds? By you/eternallyfrosted. This happened a few years ago when I was about 15 years old. It was a pretty common occurrence at that time for my family and the families of my two best friends to go out for dinner. During one such time, my best friends and I decided that it would be more adult and cool for us to sit away from the rest of our families and to just eat and chat at a separate table. We were a couple of young teens having a fun time. That's when one of my friends, Jenny, whispered that the guy sitting at the table next to us seemed to be staring at me. I slightly turned my head and realized that he did seem to be looking my way, but I brushed it off. I mean, we were at a restaurant. People looking around seemed normal and innocent enough. And as the time progressed, my other friend Gabby also noticed the man staring at me, and we began to get a little more concerned. As the time progressed, my other friend Gabby also noticed the man staring at me, and we began to get a little more concerned. He had seemed to have finished his food a long time ago, but just continued to sit there watching us, especially me. The man seemed to be in his 30s, and his expression was starting to creep the three of us out, but we decided not to do anything in case it was just us overthinking. Eventually, the man did pay and leave and we felt relieved. But as soon as I took my first bite of food, Jenny motioned to me frantically. We were sitting by a window and as it turns out, the man had left the restaurant, but he hadn't fully left the premises. He was actually standing below the window, continuing to stare at me. At this point, we realized this wasn't normal behavior, but we also didn't want to alert our families and cause a scene. So, we kept eating but also kept our attention on the window. By the time we were all done with dinner and our bill had been paid, the man was still outside. We were worried that he would try something, so we stayed close to our dads on the way out. He followed us as we walked our cars from a distance, but eventually changed direction and left. The whole ordeal was super creepy to us, but we let it go because, well, it was over. Or so we thought. 3 months later, the three of us decided to visit the busy downtown area of our city for fun. We were standing on a street corner trying to figure out where to go next when I felt Gabby tapping my shoulder. At first I didn't respond, but when she continued, I looked up and I felt like my heart stopped. It was the same guy from the restaurant. The restaurant had been nowhere near where we were currently standing, yet somehow by sheer coincidence, we had ran into him again in a city of a huge population. The guy made eye contact with me, and I could tell that he recognized us. And we immediately walked away as fast as we could, and he started to follow. But after a few minutes, eventually, we did lose him. We tried to then continue on with our plans and ended up having a good time, all things considered. However, just when we had decided to head back home, we ran into the guy and one of his friends again. This time, we were really freaked out. He spotted us again, and this time, him and his friend followed us. Gabby told us maybe he wouldn't come after us if we went into a makeup store. We tried that, but nope. They walked right inside after us. At this point, Jenny was ready to call the police, but we decided to try and lose them one last time by ducking into a toy store. We stayed in the store for a while and kept an eye outside. They walked back and forth for a few minutes looking for us. But eventually, they left the area, and we decided that now was the time to make our move and leave. This time we lost them for good, but the whole ordeal was beyond stressful. The three of us never told anyone else what happened, and I still don't know what he wanted from me, or what would have happened if he had caught up to us. But I am glad that I haven't seen the guy since. All these years later, my friends and I think back to this incident and still think about how crazy the odds were to meet the same creep more than once in completely different random places. So, to the creep who stalked me and my friends, let's never meet again. Parking Lot Stalker by u/pepsistove. I used to work in an industrial area that tends to be secluded and dark at night with minimal lighting along the roads. I also lived close to this previous job, so I would walk home instead of taking the bus. I can't drive. The bus routes tend to be awkward and have a long wait time, so I usually walk. One night in early October, I had been walking through a parking lot to get to my place. I had to walk through a few parking lots to get to my place. However, the parking lots close to the main road were where these incidents occur. Anyway, as I am walking through a desolate parking lot, I am listening to music and enjoying my walk when I get this suspicious feeling that I should look behind me. I look behind and see this individual wearing a hoodie/track pants and appears to be maybe a woman. This person is pale and seems to be watching me after emerging from the bushes or trees that she was hiding in. She picks up pace from behind me but continues walking horizontal to me. I ran across the main road, and when I looked back, I could see her standing next to a set of trees. She then realizes that I see her watching me and jumps behind a tree to hide. I go into some random apartments to hide from her and wait there for some time. I then left and went to my place. I told my mom about this incident, and she said that I should have called the police. Now, it doesn't stop there. So now it's early November. I have a weird feeling that there is someone in this parking lot that I am walking through. I was walking through a different parking lot this time, as the previous parking lot had freaked me out because someone was watching me. And as I am walking through this, the person wearing a hoodie emerges from hiding behind a parked trailer, talking on her phone. I am now thoroughly freaked out and decided to pick up my pace and get to the main road as fast as possible without alerting this person that I feel threatened by them. And as I am getting ready to cross the road, this person decides to cross the road as well and watches me as I do it. I book it to the random apartment and hide in there until I assume that she is gone. Now, the last time this happened was in mid-November, a week after the second incident. I am walking through the same parking lot that I saw her the second time. Dumb, I know. But this time, she emerges from hiding behind a trailer and starts walking towards me. I decide to just run and get to the main road. I get across the main road and look back, and she's gone. I assume she must have been hiding behind the trailer, as there was no way she could have gotten out of the parking lot in that time. I decide to hide in the same apartment building as well. Now, I have not seen her as it has been snowing, so it would be significantly easier to see her face, and it's too cold to wait out in a parking lot. I also no longer work there, so I no longer have to take that route to work. Now, it could have been a man as they were pretty tall, but I thought I heard her voice when she was talking on her phone, and when I saw her the first time, I thought she might have been a white female with darker hair. I have not gone to the police with this information, but I might. I highly doubt that it will do anything, but my mom thinks it might. Followed on the Subway by u/ZingingCutie30. This happened to me in the summer of 2015. I was dating a guy who lived in the city, and I was living at home at that time in the suburbs. Neither of us had a car, and since I lived at home with my bedroom right next to my grandma's, I always went to him. I take the subway to his place every week and stay for a couple of days that I had off from work. To get to his apartment required taking 2 trains. One day, I was headed to see him. It was super hot out and I was wearing a skirt with straps and a crop top and knee-high socks. Hey, I wanted to look cute. I guess I feel this is important as I probably stood out in this outfit. And unfortunately, I probably should have been more careful about what I was wearing, which sucks. Anyway, I'm on the first train, and after a few stops, I noticed a man get on. I kind of couldn't not notice him as he chose to stand right in front of where I was sitting and stare at me, rather than taking an empty seat. It made me feel weird. The man in general gave me a very creepy vibe. He was probably in his 40s, look unkempt, but otherwise, kinda just a basic-looking white dude whose face I can't even picture now. So, I get off at the last stop and head through the station to where I need to catch the second train. But I noticed this guy is following me, which at first I figured wasn't a big deal. He could have been just going to the same place. So, to get to the platform that I needed to be, you have to go up some stairs. And I realize he's right behind me. I decided to turn around and go to a different platform, which happened to be packed with people, thinking if he follows me then, this is bad, but maybe I can lose him in the crowd. Yeah, he follows me, and I try to duck out of view before going back to the actual platform that I needed to be waiting on. I get there, and for a few minutes, I feel better. Until I see him again. He must have known that I would be there after I had gone there, and then turned around. Plus, it was the only other platform, and most likely, he saw me the whole time. There weren't too many people waiting compared to the other side, but a few trains came that were so full that I didn't even bother to try to get on, and neither did he. The whole time I am texting my boyfriend, who is not taking me seriously at all. I asked he at least meet me at the station when I got to the stop from his apartment, which was like a 5-minute walk. He was being reluctant, but agreed finally. And at this point, though I am still waiting for a train, one comes that is very full, but I'm getting restless and I want to get to a safe place, so I squeeze on, and so does the man right next to me with his arm over me. I decide that even with all these people around, I am not safe. So right before the doors close, I hop out, and the train leaves with a guy on it, staring at me as it pulled away. I waited for a few more trains to come and go, worried that the guy would be waiting for me at the next stop or something. And I got on a train finally, paying attention to everyone who got on at each stop. He never did. And I made it to my stop, greeted by my boyfriend, who seemed put out by having to walk over. Well, he's an ex-boyfriend now and was generally kinda shitty. I'm really proud of myself for getting off of that train at the last second. I don't know how much danger I was in, but I know that that man was following me and definitely wasn't for any wholesome reason. And despite being in public, I feel like if he had tried anything, no one would have done shit. And I am a very small and not strong person. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.